I don't I don't even know how to start this video, guys. This is like a dream come true. But this is how I my Tesla trade that I made over $80,000 on. What's up, guys? This is Cruz from Edge Wall Street. And before we jump into my Tesla trade, just want to remind you to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications whenever we release new videos. So you'll be notified of new videos. I've released 2 videos at least a week. I also go live on Fridays. I stream and trade live if you want to come hang out. And we do a pre-market plan. We execute together. Just overall good vibes. And if you want to come hang out. And on Sunday, we do a Sunday stock study, and we just kind of get ready for the week on what tickers we're watching, technical analysis questions, things like that, if you want to come hang out on Sundays as well. But jumping right into my Tesla trade here, let me fix my screens here real quick. All right, guys, welcome. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to take a look at Tesla. And this is going to be my whole thought process, my whole thesis from the beginning of when I started looking at it and started trading it and what have you. And this goes all the way back into October. So October, when they reported earnings around in this area. And if you take a look from the time they reported earnings before that, back in about July, if we highlight this area and we zoom in, it just kind of ranged, right? So it ranged in this area, and it didn't quite do much, and it started breaking up more when it started getting towards when they're going to report earnings. So then they reported earnings, which was a huge surprise to everyone. That they reported profits, and there's people that said that they fluffed their profits and their revenue and whatnot, but that's not for me to figure out. Like, if they did it, like, cool. I'm a technical trader. I go off of price action and what happens on the chart. So I'll leave the fundamentals to everyone else. So we had this gap up here on earnings, which is really nice, right? So we had it where it came down, it held this base, and it pushed back up, right? So once it got right here, and I just erased all my notes. I had some notes here, some annotations on the chart. So this is where I started looking at where it was, ranging to the side right here, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer. So it started ranging, so it pushed up and it came in and started ranging, and you see this very nice support here about 327.50. So 327.50 right here, it was holding freaking amazing right here. I saw this, like kind of cup pattern right here where it just, it looked really freaking nice. And then on one of our Sunday stock studies, I said, I like Tesla for the long here as long as it holds the 327.50. So then we started getting some push up. We started getting some push up, and we started moving away from there. And I was saying, hey, we might actually see it, get to 400. So let's see what happens. If it gets to if it gets to 400, right? So and it did. So it got to 400, and I'm intraday trading just in and out here. Maybe a couple hundred. Maybe $1,000. In this range, right? And it just kept on marching up. So it kept on marching up, and it got, so my profit target at this point was 420. So the 420, obviously, where Elon Musk, famously said that, was going to get to. So yeah, I was looking for it to get to 420, right? Then we had this little down day. So this down day where this pullback, and I love this pullback right here. So this pullback said a lot. So this pullback, and then it held the support at 400. That's what I wanted to do, and I got some more calls right here. And I don't remember exactly how my trade went, but I mean, I mostly intraday traded it at this point, right? So every day, just intraday trading, in and out, scalping, for 10, 15, 20 points or whatever, that it would give. At this point, once it started getting around, 400, 450, I started joking, with some of my guys in the room where I was saying like, hey, we might see 500, 550 on this thing, right? So 500, 550 on this thing would just be, absolutely nuts, right? So what I did here was, so once it got here to, oh, so it started pushing, Oh, so I pushed up this day, right? So I pushed up right here on this day, and then it came up, and then it in pre-market it gave up a bunch of gains. So it gave up a bunch of gains here in pre-market, and then if you look in this day, like there was it started holding uh, it started holding the 500, right? So at 499, 498, I started I built a position there, to a swing position to hold on. So then so my ride so I was calling from there from 500 to 550, and then that would be my trade. So on that trade I made over $17,000, and that's the one I put the one I made the video on, that I put up a couple weeks ago. I'll put a link up here, so if you want to take a look at that video, I made $17,000 on that trade, and that was just awesome. So that was just an amazing trade, planned out perfect, right? So we had this pullback, here where it held 500, and then it started taking off again. So it took off, got over 550. My last sell was at 545 or so. I got out, and it was a very beautiful trade. So I liked it, and then I stayed out. So I stayed out for a couple days. I stayed out, and then I seen where it pulled back here again, right? So it pulled back here again to about the 550 level. So I wanted it to hold, the round around the 550 level or 500, and then for it to get up to 600. Now by this time, right? So by this time I was so so by this time, right? So I was looking at it, and we have earnings, coming up for Tesla, that just reported, and and the um, and the implied volatility was really high, and the market makers were, the premiums for the contracts were just, outside the roof. It was just nuts. It was like I couldn't afford to play them. I couldn't afford to play them, but my plan was for it to get to 650. So if it held this 550 or so, with the earnings, right? So with the earnings, they were saying that they were implying a 12% move. So which at that time it was putting me about 645 to 649. So 650 is what it was putting it at. So I bought outside the money calls all the way at 650 when it was at 550, which was absolutely nuts. Like way outside the money, overzealous, and I really wanted it to get there, and it did. I mean, if you look right here, this was a really nice, decent trade here, and it got up to 650 right here after they reported earnings, right on the dot. My profit target was 650. It got straight there. I only made about $2,000 on that trade. So even though like I got some decent size on it, I only made about $2,000 on that trade because of the implied volatility, and I couldn't get enough contracts because of the price of them. So that's a huge learning experience for me. So that was a huge learning experience for me to make a swing through earnings on the contracts. Um, the way I should have played this, and the way I should have played this, or would it be to do something like 600 calls, long in the 600 calls, and once they got to the 650, they'd be so deep in the money that I would make a pretty good profit then. But the implied volatility, I had already implied the move all the way up to 650. It killed my profits, and I was just playing weekly. So I was just playing the weeklies, and I didn't have a choice. I had to get out at that point. So I got out, for a little bit of profit, and we just called it a day, right? By this time, when they announced earnings in this area here, then I'm running out of my thesis, right? So I'm running out of my thesis. My whole thesis altogether was everyone hates this stock. Everyone, wants it to go down. I think this has to be the most hated stock ever, right? So there's so many people that were shorting it that and I from the times when I was trading small caps, I was making a living off of doing the opposite of everyone else. So everyone was shorting small caps. I started going long and getting into these short squeezes, and I was making more money that way. So that's what I was thinking here on the Tesla trade, is that if everyone is short in this and we start getting some decent profits, then and decent move up, we're gonna have a huge short squeeze. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting it to get up to 900 the way that it has been the last few days, but a nice short squeeze that where we could ride up, right? And like I said, I called the still in the room, at 327.50. That was, where I wanted to go long, and it hasn't looked back from that point. So all the way since October, and that's one of my biggest regrets about this whole thing, is that I wish I would have had the money to be able to, see into the future to, hold a longer term play and have the calls longer but I couldn't afford it. I didn't have enough money to, be able to afford it at that time. And so that's, one of my only regrets is that I couldn't, do like a longer term plan instead of, playing for $10, $15 every day, just intraday trading it with, long contracts. Um, so with that being said, um, so that was my whole thesis on everything was that, everyone hates this. It's going to short squeeze and I'm going to do the opposite. And it's really hard. It's really hard when you're, everyone that you're talking to about it is telling you to, to short sell it or, to not, take the trade that I'm taking. And it's really hard to block out the noise and, filter the noise to, trade your own trade. And it's so I don't know how many times I have to say I told you so. Throughout this process, and it's just nuts. So um, so after I reported earnings, it got to 650. I made my $2,000 or whatever, and I started to run out of my thesis. So like, my thesis is like, hey, like, we get into earnings, they're going to report earnings, they're going to post a profit from the Model 3s, and then we're going to go from there, right? Um, so that was my thesis, and that was and it happened. It got to 650, and then I was like, okay, like, are the shorts going to take over? It's going to go down now, or what's going to go on? And then I started doing a little bit more research as far as the supply and demand, for the actual ticker and how many shares and how many contracts are actually in Tesla for the open interest in it, and it's a lot. There's a lot of big money in this stock right now, and there's once I started talking to a few other guys about it, it gave me more conviction that it has a whole lot more room to go. A whole from 700, or excuse me, from the time I was at 650, it had a whole lot more room to go. From the 650 area. So then, so on top of that, so if you go back and you look at the sweeps for the contracts for calls on Tesla, there's open 800 calls, there's open 900 calls, there's even open sweeps at 1,000. So if those people are willing to put that big of money on the table, and risk, that money that they're making, then there's obviously something that they know that I don't know, and they're very confident that it's going to go up that high. So I'm just going to follow along with the big money, right? So when we came around here to the here from the 650, I made another let's see here. So I made another trade here as far as yesterday, and I got in at the open. So at the open, when it pushed up, I got some contracts, and then and then it started pulling back, right? So if we go and we take a look a little bit closer, right? So we'll take like a 5 day chart, and so this is where I started trading it. So maybe a little bit closer than that. Here we go. So so I got in on this opening push, right? So on this open push, this is what I call my dip and rip or snickle fritz pattern in the room. And so we have a strong pre-market. It held at the open. I got in once I saw that it held, and I got out on this opening push here, and I made about $6,000 or $7,000 on this push. Now it started jumping down and it started holding around here at 711, and you get this ascending triangle type pattern. So this ascending triangle type pattern, and I said this thing is not done. So this thing is not done. It's not going to come back down. We still have a lot more to go. So what I did here was I took February 21st long calls, and I got in at this area at 711. I bought them for $25 and some average, and I'll post a picture of my P&L and the average right here, and then I just let it ride. Now, when it started marching up, right? So it started marching up here, and I had an appointment I had to go to, and I'm getting messages from the guys in my room that I need to sell and hurry up and get out before we have a huge drop, and I'm telling them, my profit target is at least 800. So my profit target is at least 800 on this. I have 750 calls, which I learned from the past, right? So I didn't want to be in the same position where that what happened with the earnings where it only got to 800 and I didn't make that much money because it was just barely in the money, right? So I took a little bit lower a lower strike price a little bit further out in February 21st, which is 2 weeks out, and I was pretty confident that we would get to 800 even if we dipped down to 650 700 or so and just kind of consolidated. I was pretty confident we would go back up and test 800, and I was not expecting it to do it this quickly. So it did, and I'm getting calls when this is spiking up here. To this is spiking up here, telling me how much it's up, and again, I keep on getting told, by the guys in my room and stuff, to get out of the trade, just go ahead and sell it. Just it's not going to keep on continuing to go up, because of this drop right here. And I said no, my profit target's 800. I actually had to call my broker because I wasn't home. I called them on the phone, told them to take me out of the trade. So I sold half my contracts right here, and then I was gonna let the rest of it ride to 800. So and I had already covered my expense. I had already covered my cost of my trade. I had already cost everything, and so at this point the trade could not hurt me. I would make a little bit of money. Um, I would not stand to lose anything on this trade at this point. So what I would do, I said I was going to let the last 5 contracts ride, even if they expire worthless. It doesn't matter. So so I let them ride, and I was ignoring everyone. I had to mute my chat. I had to mute everything, so I didn't close out during this time, and we closed really strong. So I was watching it during after hours, and I was a little bit wary here where I was coming back. I thought it's coming back to like 750, and I was getting a little bit wary of it coming back that far lower. And then I wake up in the morning this morning, and I am just like, I can't believe it. Like I have a bunch of messages from my members because they're in Europe, so they're obviously already awake and they're sitting there watching it as it's going up. They're trying to call me and text me, tell me if I'm still in, if I still have contracts, and I wake up and I still have 5 contracts of it, right? So now this is where this gets a little bit interesting here. So I had to you have a little bit of a gut check, right? I'm up right here from 711, right, all the way up to here where it opened up at 881. I'm up over 150, 100 and how many points? And I just made the decision that that is definitely a really great trade. I'm over 800, which is my profit target. It could dip, and this is all profit taking at this time. It could dip and then rip at this time, and then continue up. But there's no need to get greedy. I was up 68,000 here at the open, and then it started dipping, and then that's when I started getting out, and I ended up making 56,000 all in total on those last 5 contracts. I made 56,000 on top of the 26,000 that I covered from Monday. So on this trade right here, and then also where I got out right here, I made 26,000. So in total, it comes out to 84,000 altogether that I made, and it's just absolutely nuts. So, the average salary here in New Mexico is about $35,000. So I mean, just to put that into perspective, is just is nuts, and definitely blessed. I mean, I I was shaking. I was there's just a whole bunch of emotions that that come along with it. Like this is definitely a record trade for me, and I mean it's cool. It's cool just to live and be able to see these things happen in the market because they don't happen every day, and it's absolutely cool to be a part of it and to be able to see it. So um, I'll post the picture so you guys could take a look at it right here. But this so I got out, and I just left it alone the rest of the day, even though these contracts nearly doubled, throughout the day. So they added like another 100 and some points throughout the day, and this drop, this fuck you drop at the end of the day was just absolutely gnarly. So um, I'm happy with it. I left with the way the contracts were right here. So I left actually about $100,000 on the table. I mean, that's trading, guys. I mean, I can't, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I can't be upset about how much money I made. So I made $17,000 on the first trade from Tesla, from the 450 to 550, and then 2,000 from the earnings. So all that came to around uh, 20,000 or so. I made 26,000 on Monday, which was yesterday, and then 56 today. So altogether, it comes out to be about over $105,000 that I'm up on the year for the day, or up on the year for this year. So um, I'm gonna take some time off. So I'm gonna take some time off to digest this and enjoy it, um, and see where I go from here. So. Um, but that's my trade, and that's my total thesis on why I traded Tesla, and why I took the chance on it. And so I don't care what the fundamentals say. I don't care what everyone else on Twitter says. I'm here to play the price action and the technical indicators that I built to help me trade, and that's what's got me through with all this line. And the money's cool, guys. Don't get me wrong. The money's cool, but the execution's even better. And um, money isn't everything, guys. I mean, I'm in a huge custody battle for my son right now, and I still don't get to see him. So I still don't. Money can't buy me that stuff. All I could do is go to court and fight for it. So I mean, enjoy the relationships you have, and enjoy be grateful for the things that you do have that don't cost money, because it's super super lonely to have the money and not have anyone around to be able to celebrate with or anything like that. So but that's it, guys. I just wanted to go over my Tesla trade with you, and how it did work. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Make sure you stay money biased. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications. We'll see you in the next video.